There is a detail in this story that most people miss. A teacher is thrown out of a royal court, humiliated, his clothes torn. The palace doors slam shut behind him. Instead of shouting, instead of threatening revenge, he does something very small, very quiet. He reaches to the crown of his head and unties the knot of hair every priest in ancient India wore, tied from childhood, never undone. This was no ordinary gesture. A priest untied that knot for only two reasons: to mourn the dead, or to declare that a great wrong would not go unanswered. He was not mourning. "I will not tie this knot again," he vowed, "until the Nanda kingdom is destroyed." That man was Chanakya, a teacher, a strategist, a man who never commanded armies from horseback or fought duels with a sword. The boy he was about to find had no family name that mattered, no wealth, no throne, and no future anyone could see. His name was Chandragupta Maurya. Together, they would bring down the most powerful kingdom in India and lay the foundations of one of the greatest empires in the ancient world. When it was over, one walked away into silence, the other stepped into history. Long before the insult, before the vow, before the empire, Chanakya was already studying a different kind of battlefield. He taught at Taxila, the greatest center of learning in ancient India. Students arrived from across the land and beyond to study medicine, astronomy, law, philosophy, and the sacred texts. But Chanakya devoted himself to one subject: power, why kingdoms rose, why they collapsed, and during his lifetime, he watched the balance of power change forever. Far to the west, Alexander had destroyed the mighty Persian Empire and now stood at India's doorstep. Chanakya looked across the land and saw dozens of kingdoms, rich, powerful, proud, but divided. Each was strong enough to fight its neighbors, yet too divided to resist an empire. Alexander's advance had ended, not because an Indian kingdom defeated him, but because his exhausted soldiers refused to march any farther. The next invader might not turn back. That realization changed everything. Chanakya reached a conclusion that was revolutionary for its time. If India remained divided, it would always remain vulnerable. The only lasting defense was unity. One ruler, one army, one state. To make that vision a reality, he needed the support of the strongest kingdom in the land, the Nanda Empire. Its ruler, King Nanda, commanded immense wealth, a vast army, and resources unmatched anywhere in the region. If anyone could unite India, it was him. So Chanakya traveled east to his court. He carried no army, no treasure, only an idea. He had no way of knowing that before the day was over, that idea would become a vow. The king listened and dismissed the idea. Perhaps that should not surprise us. He ruled the wealthiest kingdom in India. Ancient writers describe a treasury overflowing with riches and one of the largest armies in the ancient world. To a ruler surrounded by such power, the warnings of a wandering scholar must have seemed almost laughable. But Nanda did not simply reject the proposal. He mocked Chanakya's appearance before the entire court. Laughter echoed through the hall. Guards seized him, dragged him outside, and threw him into the dust. Now, historians cannot say with certainty that every detail happened exactly this way. Much of this story comes from traditions written centuries later, but whether the humiliation unfolded exactly as described is, in some ways, beside the point. Something changed that day. The man who entered the palace believed a king could save India. The man who walked out decided he would build a new king instead. There is an old saying, never mistake patience for weakness. Chanakya had spent his life studying how kingdoms rose and fell. Now, for the first time, he intended to put those lessons into practice. He reached up, untied the knot in his hair, and made a vow. I will not tie it again until the Nanda kingdom is destroyed. Then he disappeared from the capital, not to hide, but to search. Not for an army, for someone who could become one. Who was Chandragupta Maurya? The honest answer is, we are not entirely sure. Some describe him as the son of a fallen warrior family. Others suggest humbler origins. Greek writers simply remembered him as a gifted commoner. But every tradition agrees on one thing. He was not born to rule. He inherited no throne, no army, no fortune, no powerful allies. According to one famous tradition, Chanakya found him in a village. A group of children were pretending to run a kingdom. One boy sat above the others, settling disputes and giving orders. The remarkable part was not that he played the king. Children do that everywhere. It was that the others followed him willingly, not because they had to, because they trusted him. Chanakya watched. Then he tested the boy. Some stories say with questions, others say with challenges. Whatever happened between them, the teacher saw something he had been searching for. Not royal blood, potential. Chanakya had set out looking for a weapon. Instead, he found a student. He brought Chandragupta to Taxila. There, over the years that followed, he taught him everything he believed a ruler should know: strategy, diplomacy, economics, espionage, leadership. Not simply how to win battles, but how to build a kingdom capable of surviving them. He was not educating a prince, he was creating one. This is where most versions of the story leap straight to the victory. Reality was far more interesting. Chanakya and Chandragupta did not march on the Nanda capital and triumph in a single glorious battle. In fact, their first attempt appears to have failed. Later traditions tell us they attacked too early, striking at the heart of the kingdom before they had the strength to sustain the campaign. The result was disaster. Forced to retreat, they escaped with little more than their lives. For a moment, it seemed Chanakya's vow would end in failure, but Chanakya did not panic. He adapted. He realized that the empire could not be defeated from the center outward. It had to be dismantled piece by piece. So they changed everything. While Chandragupta gathered allies among frontier tribes, local rulers, and dissatisfied soldiers, Chanakya fought an invisible war. He built networks of spies, recruited dissatisfied ministers, spread misinformation, turned rival factions against one another. Chanakya understood something simple. The greatest way to weaken an enemy was not to destroy his best minds, but to make them your own. Meanwhile, Chandragupta advanced steadily along the empire's edges. Every town that changed sides weakened the Nandas. It was less like winning a single battle and more like solving a massive puzzle. Years later, Chanakya's great book on statecraft would describe this very approach. Do not rush toward the center. Secure the frontier. Break the enemy's alliances. Win the loyalty of the people. Only then strike the capital. By the time Chandragupta finally marched on the capital city, around 321 BCE, the Nanda Empire was already crumbling from within. The final battle did not create the Mauryan Empire. It simply revealed that it had already been won. The Nanda Empire had fallen, but proving you can seize a kingdom is very different from proving you can keep one. About 16 years later, the Mauryan Empire faced the greatest challenge of Chandragupta's reign. Alexander was dead, but his empire had not vanished. It had been divided among his generals, and one of the most powerful, Seleucus, now ruled a vast territory stretching from Syria to the borders of India. To Seleucus, the lands Alexander had briefly occupied in the northwest still belonged to the Greek world. Around 305 BCE, he marched east to reclaim them. What he expected to find was a collection of divided kingdoms. Instead, he found an empire. For nearly 2 decades, Chandragupta and Chanakya had been preparing for exactly this moment. The army that once struggled to challenge the Nandas had become one of the largest military forces in the ancient world. Its most feared weapon was not its size, but its elephants. Ancient accounts describe thousands of war elephants, trained, armored, and deployed as disciplined military units. The war lasted roughly 2 years. The details of the battles have been lost, but the outcome has not. Seleucus failed. He ceded vast territories, including much of present-day Afghanistan and Pakistan, to Mauryan Empire. The frontier moved farther west than ever before. A marriage alliance followed, binding the two dynasties. Seleucus sent a Greek ambassador to the Mauryan court, and in return, he received 500 war elephants. Those same elephants would later help him win decisive battles against his rivals in the west. By the way, I'd love to know where you're watching from. It's incredible to see how far these stories travel. And if you're enjoying this documentary, consider subscribing. Back to the story now, because it is about to take a turn nobody saw coming. And then, something unexpected happened. After ruling for nearly 24 years, Chandragupta Maurya walked away. The man who had spent half his life building an empire chose to leave it behind. According to Jain tradition, he embraced the Jain faith under the guidance of a Jain teacher. He handed the throne to his son, left the capital, and journeyed south. There, in the hills of southern India, he lived not as an emperor, but as a monk, owning almost nothing, seeking mastery not over kingdoms, but over himself. Chanakya chose a different path. He remained in the capital, continuing to guide the empire during the early years of his student's son. The two men had spent decades pursuing the same goal, yet when that goal had finally been achieved, they chose different endings. One found peace by leaving power behind. The other believed protecting the state remained life's highest duty. They began as teacher and student. They ended as two men who had changed history, each in his own way. The story did not end with either of them. It was only beginning. Chandragupta's son carried the empire farther into the south. Then came his grandson, Ashoka. Under him, the Mauryan Empire reached its greatest extent. Yet after witnessing the horrors of the Kalinga War, he too turned away from conquest and embraced Buddhism, replacing the language of victory with the language of compassion. In many ways, Ashoka became the bridge between their two legacies. He inherited Chanakya's vision of a unified state and reflected Chandragupta's belief that true greatness could lie beyond power itself. Even today, their legacy surrounds us. The lion capital of Ashoka became the national emblem of India. The wheel stands at the center of the Indian flag, but their greatest achievement was proving that unity was possible, that it was not a fantasy. It was a choice. Two men. One untied his hair in the dust outside a palace gate and refused to tie it again until an empire fell. The other sat on a mound of earth, pretending to be a king. And one day, he sat upon the greatest throne in India. They started with nothing. No army, no throne, just a vow and a vision. Chanakya imagined the empire. Chandragupta made it real. And when it was done, they went separate ways. They did not need to agree on how the story should end, because they had already agreed on how it should begin.